English garden roses in front of a beautiful old stone home is like peanut butter and jelly to me.
Hi, I'm Tori and welcome to my gardens in Clark Summit, Pennsylvania.
So when we bought the house, there was no garden. There was nothing. There were no flower beds. There were no pretty, plants or shrubs or flowers. Everything was just vines and overgrown shrubs, wisteria, grass, weeds. That was it.
The circle garden here is really the first thing that you see when you pull up to the house. I knew that I wanted to make it a big impact.
I had really just started getting more heavily into gardening, specifically like roses.
I dug up the circle, which was originally just all grass, and I quartered it off, and I did different varieties of pink David Austin roses, 16 to 18 different David Austin varieties, and then kind of sprinkled in with some different perennials.
I immediately just thought cottage style, your English countryside cottage style garden.
The deer love to feast on my roses, so as I got smarter, what I did was I started incorporating more very, very deer resistant perennials into these mixed beds so that it was just a little bit less work on my end in terms of having to spray to keep the deer away, like allium, catmint, calamintha, agastaki. Echinacea is not technically listed as deer resistant, but honestly, my deer don't touch it. Make sure that you are incorporating some really good textural variety, some really good variation in color, but also you want to have something to look at all season long, from spring into the first frost. I've got a lot of different varieties of ornamental basil, some silver mound, some lavender, some agastaki, the catmint here, and at full maturity, you will see a really nice hedge kind of weave its way and run all the way across from the start of the bed to the back patio. Okay, so now I'm going to take you over to the side gardens, and this is actually where I grow all of my cut flower varieties, and I do have some mixed perennial beds over there as well. Okay, so we are at what is pretty much the entry point of the side gardens. I actually put up this tunnel and planted a couple different varieties of different shades of yellow and cream David Austin climbing roses. Eventually one day, hopefully by year 4, maybe year 5, this entire tunnel will be covered and draped in beautiful golden and cream climbing roses. Okay, so I have a lot of my yellow varieties of David Austin roses, your standard rose bushes in this bed here. This is Moonbeam Coreopsis. It's actually unbelievable at nighttime. It literally glows in the dark. This is the calamintha. This is one of my favorite perennials. It mounds beautifully. It holds its shape. It holds its bloom for a really long time. All right, now we're heading over to my cut flower area, and this is where my dahlia beds start. One of the big things with dahlias is providing them with some sort of support. So either staking individually, or if you have more than a few dahlias, it kind of makes more sense to secure them as a whole. So you'll notice that I have my garden stakes here, and I have some of this garden wire running in almost like a zigzag pattern. And again, all that does is help provide a little bit of support for the dahlias because they do get very tall. One of the things that people immediately ask me when they walk through the gardens is, why do I cover my flowers with mesh bags? And typically these would all be covered right now, but for the shoot, we took the covers off. And the answer to that question is really a 2-part answer. For me, primarily, it is to prevent bug damage. So the bugs love to get in these flowers and burrow inside the petals, and they love to chew and chomp away at the petals, and they really do a number on the blooms. Because I'm growing these as a cut flower, I really have to protect the integrity of the bloom because nobody wants to buy chewed up flowers. And so the mesh bags really, really work wonders for that specific purpose.
Dahlias, the more you cut them, the deeper you cut them, the more profusely they bloom, the stronger they bloom, the more tubers they produce under the ground. They're just absolute workhorses.
So typically when I'm cutting my dahlias, I'm not gonna just cut it right here in between the first leaf set. And I think that's what most people tend to do because they don't want to disturb these buds here. I'm telling you that it's worth losing the buds. This plant is going to keep pumping out more flowers for you all season long. The more you cut it, the better it is for the plant's production. So I typically go down at least 4 leaf sets and cut there. So I always have long stems, and again, this just really helps to encourage the strength of the stem, the length of the stem, and the bloom cycle in general, and again, also the tuber production. Up here is where my orange roses start. I love partnering orange flowers with purples and shades of pink, so you're gonna see a lot of purple companions mixed in with the orange roses. This is the milkweed. It is really, majority of it has gone to seed now, but I do not cut them down because I want them to go to seed, because then they dry out and they pop open, and I have my own seeds that I save for the following year. The only downside to the milkweed is it does have a taproot, which means it's a surface growing root. So once it's planted somewhere, you cannot dig it up and move it. It is set there. We have some beautiful purple roses. This one is my favorite. It's Poseidon. This whole bed is hedged out with little lime punch hydrangeas. The hydrangeas are unbelievable this season. This is a plant that I really struggled with the deer. So putting up the fencing this year has really helped me tremendously. So there are a few different varieties of hydrangea. The panicle family, you're going to be able to differentiate because you're gonna notice that the blooms have a more cone-shaped kind of pointed head to them, not a round one. And they all typically start kind of green, white, and then as you progress through the season and into the fall, they turn to this, they'll start kind of getting a little pink, and then they finish off this beautiful, deep raspberry, almost red fuchsia color. So they hold their color all season long. They dry out beautifully on the plant, and they serve as a great dried flower. So I leave mine on until the fall, and then I cut them already dried, bring them into the house. I use them in all of my holiday arrangements, my holiday wreaths. I use them as picks in my Christmas trees. Some of them I spray paint a metallic bronze or silver and incorporate them into other parts of holiday decor. So they're also nice as a cut flower because you can cut them and they will rebloom. Echinacea, wonderful perennial that always does really well for me. You'll see a lot of the allium. It's an ornamental onion. So it has a really good smell to it, in my opinion. A lot of people may feel differently, but it's what keeps the pests away. This here is one of my favorite Augustakis. This is Purple Haze Augustaki. And again, in this bed here, I have a bunch of different varieties of red roses. So this is a variety of feathered grass, and I actually really want to start incorporating this a little bit more into my perennial beds. I love these soft feathery plumes that grow atop, and I really like how the wispiness kind of breaks up, you know, the bushy kind of shrub nature of the roses and the hydrangeas.
I bought the house in October of 2021, and so we've been here almost 3 years.
And I said from the get-go that really my driving inspiration behind it was Secret Garden, which is one of my favorite movies and books growing up as a child. It was really about bringing the outside indoors and having the interior of the home mirror what I wanted to do out here in the gardens. And that's primarily, I think, because I take a very similar approach to my garden layout as I do when I am designing any room on the inside of a house. And for me, that means textural variety, variety in color, variety in height, really allowing yourself the grace and the room to kind of build as you go. I dig first and I think later. There have been plenty of perennials that I have moved just in the couple of years that I've been here. I maybe planted in one bed, and then in its second season, things really filled out, or I just didn't like how it was working with the color rose that it was next to, or you know, how it was planted, or the placement of it. It's very simple. You just dig it up and you move it. This is my home in the spring and summer months. You're not gonna find me inside working on any interior spaces the weather breaks and I drop all nail guns and paintbrushes and stop in the dead middle of a project, and it does not continue again until the fall. It's the best form of therapy for me. I've dedicated a lot more time, honestly, to these gardens than I have to all of the interior spaces combined. Thanks for touring my garden. Subscribe to this channel to see more videos like this.